sides. I think the fact that we've scored a goal without having any shots on target is a real issue for us. Our XG being 0.2 is another big situation, showing that we're not creating a lot of chances, we're not testing the opponent's goalkeepers. But I suppose when you're away from home and you're coming off the back of a bad home result, it's probably not a bad thing to start building with a point. And obviously we have a very tough game coming up on Wednesday.
Ще предадам малко отзад напред. В крайна сметка резултатът не е много лош. Ама играта в нападение е малко притеснителна. Очаквани голове 0-0-2. Притеснен съм малко и с оглед на тежки мач сряда. Матчът като качество беше много слаб. Това са думите на Липа. Матчът като цяло беше много слаб и цяло формата и играта са малко притеснителни. И с оглед на всичко това резултата не е лош.
Sandro Tonali played from the start today. What have you made of Sandro Tonali's performances this season?
Well, first of all, let me explain that from a managerial point of view. I found out that your so-called 11 best players don't always make your best team.
Ще кажа първо от моя менеджерски опит, че твоите 11 най-добри играча не винаги са твоя най-добър отбор.
When we've had the midfield three of Bruno, Gamirez, Tonali and Joe Linton on the pitch, we've only won one game.
С Bruno, Joe Linton и Tonali състава имаме само една победа, като стартира тримата победа.
The rhythm and the combination of that three hasn't developed yet.
Ритъма и комбинацията между тях нямат синхрон между тях, не е развит цялата.
And it just shows you that the world we live in today can mean that you can be a superstar player without really delivering any performances. Because my hand on my heart, with the exception of his debut against Aston Villa, I haven't seen a lot to be excited about Tonali at this moment in time. For Newcastle United, it's okay for Italy, but not for Newcastle United. But he's held in high esteem by the fans, and I think this is because of the footage that you can now watch on social media, on technology that we have now. Because if it was judged on how he's been performing for Newcastle, I think there would be question marks.
Това са вече мои думи, сега ще предай той какво каза. Дори гледахме матча, той усетих, че е най-големият фен на Tonali. Това, което Ли каза е, освен дебюта му срещу Астон Вила, не помня друг силен матч от хората, когато бил в Нюкасъл. Игра силно за Италия, но някак си все още не успява да развие стила си напълно в Нюкасъл. Личи му, че е класен играч, но до момента не се вписва в играта и в концепцията на отбора.
Bruno Gomes at the start of the season was given the captaincy. Has he done enough to keep the captaincy?
Bruno Gomes капитан, това добро решение беше и прави достатъчно за да заслужи капитанство.
I don't think the question is, has he done enough to be the captain? I've been a captain at every club I've been at, and it's about leadership, and some players take that captaincy and it can inspire them, and other players it can weigh heavily on their shoulders. Because being a captain of a football club and a football team doesn't just mean you wear an armband and go and see the referee before the game and hopefully you win the toss to get the kick off or start from the end that you want to kick into, etc. It's about all the work that's done off the field during the week on the training ground, making sure the high standards are set, being an extension of the manager, what his beliefs are, and pushing those beliefs and making sure if there's any players who aren't doing things up to scratch and showing the right mentality or discipline, you can keep them in check. And I think, it's what the fans see is just that bit on the Saturday where the armband and the stuff with the referee. But there's a lot more comes with being the captain of a club. And sometimes it can be an issue for someone because they just want to affect and look after their own performance. And sometimes it can inspire them. It used to inspire me. I loved it. I always felt I was a leader in any way, whether I had the old man or not. But certainly when the manager decided that he wanted us to be his captain, that gave us a big boost. So thankfully I responded to that. But I think whether it's just coincidence that Bruno has hit his top form since he's been given the armband, I don't know. But yeah, you know, when it's happening, you've got to obviously say that it might be affecting them more than he might think, and more than you know, they might think. So it might be something to consider, or it might be just as simple as that. Bruno he's having one of those spells in the football where his standards and his performances haven't reached the high standards that he set his personal bar at.
Не отговори директно, но Сашо преди показва дословно, не отговори директно на въпроса за Бруно и капитанството, но му каза, че Ник Кларк е капитан на Фулъм и на Съндърланд и на някои мачове на Нюкасъл. И каза, аз съм бил капитан и да си капитан на отбора е много повече от това да само да носиш лентата и да се караш с съдията. Като си капитан на отбора, нали, трябва да дигаш отбора и да накараш всеки да надигне глава и да вдигне рамене в много ситуации. А Бруно не е такъв темперамент. Бруно понякога му пада главата и му пада тонуса по време на матч. И това влияе зле на околните. И нали, не го казвам директно на Мекна, че може би не е най-доброто решение Бруно да е капитан. Казвам именно случайно, може и да е случайно, но на практика, когато Бруно е капитан, той не е в най-добрата си форма. И може по някакъв начин да влияе на него психически. И нали, тук вече казвам неща, които си говориш по време на матча. Може би това решение е едно от грешните решения на Еди Хал. И не е натуралният лидер на терена в много отношения, който се очаква от капитан на Нюкасъл. Сега тук е отделна тема, нали, сигурно повечето от вас знаят, Бруно до момента загуби и всички домакински срещи в Висшата лига, загуби жребия за поле и всеки път Нюкасъл почва да атакува Галория, което обичайно Нюкасъл прави второто по време. 6 от 6 загубени жребия за поле.
Which players in the current team have impressed you this season?
Yeah, I heard the shout there, Lewis Hall, very much so. I've got to admit that the year or a bit longer, I was a little bit sceptical about if he could really deliver at this level, the demands of Newcastle United. But no, he's certainly a player that's been outstanding and been very consistent. I thought it was excellent when he made his international debut for England. In the 2 games, he took it really calmly. So yeah, he's done well. I'm always going to have a soft spot for Dan Burn. I think Dan gives everything for the jersey, loves playing for the football club. Yeah, so certainly those type of players. I think there's not many mention of the attacking players we have, and that shows in our season so far, really, with the exception of a few games. We haven't hit the heights that we usually hit in terms of an attacking team, but hopefully that can come with a little bit more confidence that we can gain from each result that we get.
Стив го попитал от настоящия отбор, който ти прави много впечатление в този сезон. Някой извикал Луис Кол, той каза Луис Кол със сигурност. Много е постоянен, страхотен дебют за Англия. Каза, че миналия сезон много ме съмняваше дали ще стане нещо от него. Аз казах, предполагам повечето от нас, но този сезон е много постоянен и показва страхотно израстване. Каза, Дан Бърн е слабост, още от времето, когато ме тренира в Бирмингам, винаги се раздава на макс. И каза, очевидно, имаме страхотни играчи в нападение, но този сезон играта не върви и напрежението е върху тях, защото, както се видя и днес в нападение, почти нищо не се получава. Днес нямахме удар на вратата на практика, един гол с 0-0-2 XG.
Newcastle United have been hampered with financial fair play, PSR. In January, if you were manager of Newcastle United and you had to sell a big player, which big player would you sell at Newcastle United to raise that money that we need to spend to be able to compete?
Финансовия ферплей е голяма тема. Ако ти си собственик и менеджер на Нюкасъл, кой от големите играчи би продал през януари, за да може състава да се обнови?
Well, I think what you've got to put into context with all of this is one, the amount of money you can raise and what that enables the figure to then be what you can then go out and spend, because there's so many different rules and regulations with the PSR, so many different implications. But if you were saying to me now, with the players that I have, to try and raise funds by, say, selling either one of the three of Isaac, Golden or Guinea for, say, 100 million, and you can then invest somewhere in the region of 300 million back into your squad, I would probably say, because of the plethora of midfield players we have, that Bruno would probably have to be the one to be sacrificed. So we would then reinvest that 100 million, would go over 3 times, and would allow us to have the 300 million to bring replacements, not only in the centre of midfield, but also central defence, where he seems to want a new body, possibly another winger. What worries me about our squad is we have many players who have very poor injury records, so they miss a lot of games through injury, and this is causing big problems for us.
Ако трябва, знаем колко са сложни финансовия ферплей и финансовите правила, но ако трябва да се продаде един от топ играчите за 100 милиона, за да се генерира бюджет от 300 милиона, според мен всички знаем, че Исак, Гордан и Бруно са най-контрактируемите. За мен, т.е. него, Бруно е играча, който може да бъде продан, с оглед на наличните играчи в целия състав. И вече с 300 милиона, които имаш да продадеш Бруно за 100 милиона, може да се купи и централен защитник, което очевидно е приоритет на клуба. Крило със сигурност и допълнителен атакуващ играч. И спомена отново, че има много играчи с доста съмнителен здравен картон и че отсъстват доста често. Няма нужда да ги споменавам.
Getting away from football just for 2 minutes, the subject of St James's Park is always in the news. Newcastle United's home since the two teams amalgamated to become one. What's your feelings about moving away from St James's Park? Would you prefer Newcastle to extend on the current stadium, or would you prefer Newcastle to move away, although stay in the city centre?
Въпросът е за стадиона. В момента голямата дискусия е нов стадион или разширяване на настоящия. Май решението вече е взето и въпросът към ли е местен, или от Нюкасъл и ходи на матча от дете, въпросът той помисли и са неговите предпочитания.
This is a real situation that pulls at my heartstrings so badly, because obviously being a local player and a local lad, and going to watch my first game in 1980 and being able to watch that successful team we had in the early 80s of Keegan, Waddle, Beardsley, McDermott and all the other lads that were part of that, standing on the Gallagher end, and then when obviously it became tough, I had to get a ticket when KK arrived as a player then in the paddock behind the home dugout, and then being able to live every black and white dream of being able to play there. You know, when I first got in the team, I couldn't drive, so I used to get the bus from where I lived up to the city centre, and there was lots of fans on the bus, and walking up from Haymarket bus station to St James's to go and play in front of the Gallagher and the Lazies, always special. So this is a real tough one for me, because obviously I understand we have to raise more funds. If we can move elsewhere and build a super stadium, that would give us, a lot of the answers to the financial situation we're in with PSR. But if it is possible, I would love us just to expand and extend St James's Park. For me, this is our way.
Аз първият ми мач като дете беше 1980 година и изгледах всички мачове на великия тим от 80-те с Keegan, Waddle, Beardsley и McDermott на живо. После като станах играч, още нямах шофьорска книжка и ходих с автобуса в мачовете, които трябваше да играя. И в автобуса срещах феновете, които ми се радват всяка отивам към стадиона. И за мен като дете да играя Лиза си Галагър и двата края на стадиона, за мен това е мечта. Така че аз съм много емоционално свързан и за мен разширяване на настоящия стадион е това, което предпочитам като фен, като ликва. Иначе знам, че бизнесът диктува да има нов стадион.
Eddie Howe, great manager in our time since the takeover. What's your feelings about Eddie Howe's future. Do you think Newcastle could continue with Eddie Howe long term? Or do you think maybe the Saudis may look at the end of the season, if Newcastle again don't win a trophy, maybe miss out on Europe, maybe they might look for a change? Lots of rumours about Mourinho or about other managers. What's your feelings about that?
Въпросът е Еди Хау, страхотна работа тия 3 години, виждаш ли дългосрочно бъдете с него или е стигнал етап, в който вече сме на плато и трябва да някаква промяна дългосрочно?
Me personally, I'm a big fan of Eddie Howe. I think he's done some terrific things. He's brought some really top players to the football club. This is probably the first time that there's been a little bit of a thought process about whether he's going to be the right man or not to take us to the next level. I do feel he's been hampered in some areas with not being allowed to really enhance the squad. That's with quality but also with depth. But I do personally feel that he can, if we give him the right backing and we get him the right type of players, he can be the manager with this group that can end the trophy drive. I sincerely hope to do. I like him a lot as a person, and I've obviously managed against him, but I obviously see him around the city a lot now, and I have great respect for him, and I do hope he is, but I understand where Steve's coming from, that the Saudis may get a little bit impatient and want to try and do something a bit different, and especially now that Amanda Stavy's not in Eddie's corner, because her and her husband Brad, they were big campaigners and big believers in Eddie. They were always fighting his corner, and rightly so. But I think there's a little bit of that backing diminished a little bit now in the boardroom. So me personally, I don't want to stay. Don't see why not. But we know how football works. We know that football owners aren't the most patient of people. So yeah, let's see what happens.
Бих казал, че срещу Еди Хау като съперник, Еди Хау, когато менажираше Борнмут или когато водеше отбори в Чемпионс. И казах, познаваме лично и съм страхотен почитател. Страхотна работа до момента. Може би в момента живя най-голямата криза на идеи в Нюкасъл, но той не беше подкрепен последните 2 последни прозореца, така че дори не е ясно доколко е негова вината. Но има един проблем, нали, за Еди Хау, че Аманда Стейли и Мердат Идузи бяха неговите най-големи съподвижници гръб в клуба, тях вече ги няма. А пък арабите в инвестиционния фонд са малко безкруполни към резултати. Все още му имат доверие, но се усеща леко разплащане към момента. И той каза, аз се надявам той да остане и все още вярвам, че той може да донесе очакваната купа и трофей. Но това е футбол и футбол игра на резултати и нищо в момента е малко под въпрос дали е той или когато вярва, че е той, но зависи какво вярва, че ще е в футбола.
Lee, moving on to your career. Wednesday night, Newcastle play Liverpool, and there's going to be a War Flags tribute to Kevin Keegan. How important was Kevin Keegan to the development of your career?
Връщаме въпрос вече към кариерата ти. Сряда Нewcastle играе Ливерпул, ще има трибют към Кевин Киган на стадиона. War Flags, организацията на нашите знамена в Нewcastle ще има огромни знамена за Кевин Киган. Колко важен беше Кевин Киган за клуба и за твоето развитие като футболист?
Kevin's played a huge part in my life and my career. As I said, lucky enough to be able to see him come to our football club in the 80s when he was the most high-profile British footballer there was, and he lifted the club from the doldrums then. He done exactly the same as the manager in the 90s, and playing a brand of football that every player who he brought in loved playing. He made you feel 10 foot tall. He gave you the most confidence I've ever had. But you made you feel like you were the best player in your position in the world. He always felt it was important that when you were playing for the best group of supporters, that was the key for him. Never shied away from telling us that. He never got tired of telling us that the fans were the most important people in our club, you guys. And just an inspiration. And people talk about what managers are about, and they talk about the 2 hours, they talk about results and recruitment, and Kevin got those both spot on. His results over a period of time were phenomenal. I think the 5 seasons that he managed, or 4 or 5 seasons he managed for us in the Premier League, we only lost 5 home games. This myth about we're not being very good defensively was basically a myth. Always had finished 3rd or 2nd best defensive record. I think people just watched the Liverpool games and just thought we were a gung-ho team and gave crazy goals away, and that was a bit disrespectful to what we've done. I think the fact that we were so dominant in performances was one of the reasons why we didn't concede a lot. Certainly St James's. So played a huge part, and I think played a huge part for this football club in 2 different eras. And I'm glad eventually something's been done for Kevin to show the admiration that we have for him. I'm a little bit surprised and disappointed that something hasn't been done before now. And I'm a big advocate of, you know, the past of the football club. So when you know, you talk about statues or you talk about naming of stands, how that hasn't happened with Kevin Keegan. I'm a big advocate of the late great Joe Harvey, the last manager to win this club trophies. He has a little bust in his head behind the Gallagher end, where he should be certainly having a full body size statue made for him. So certainly Kevin, this is hopefully the start of tributes that should be made to him, because as I said, to do it once is brilliant. To do it twice, once as a player and once as a manager, is a phenomenal thing. And he nearly got with that Holy Grail, and he nearly took it to the promised land, but unfortunately it wasn't be. But it's great meeting up with him now, 76, and still full of beans, still enthusiastic, buzzing, love seeing the lads, and still great times. Love being around him again.
Значи каза, аз, нали, Киган, той е една от най-важните фигури в историята на клуба. На практика дойде 80-те години, 82-та, като най-високо профилния английски футболист, най-известен английски футболист в света, и дойде да играе за Нюкасъл в долната дивизия, което беше шок за целия свят. Нали, знаете, той го прави за дядо, който е Джорди, и на практика иска там да завърши кариерата си. И ги дига от пепелта, те тогава са посредствени в долната дивизия, за 2 години ги качва в най-горната дивизия и се оттегля като играч. И после те Нюкасъл на прага на отпадане за първи път в цялата си история в 3-та дивизия през 92-та. И Киган се връща като менеджер и ги спасява от изпадане, на следващата година ги качва във Висшата лига. И в чет, нали, Лихвар каза, за 5 години във Висшата лига Киган загубихме 5 домакински мача. Загубихме 5 домакински мача за 5 години. Имаше някакъв мит от хора, които са гледали само мачовете с Ливърпул, дето говорихме по 4 на 3, че имаме слаба защита. Ние на практика имахме винаги втората или третата най-добра защита в първенството. И то на практика нашия стил беше толкова доминиращ, че те не можеха да ни вкарват голове, защото ние доминирахме много мачовете и топката. И нали, Киган е, нали, едно в историята на един клуб да промениш историята като играч, но Киган го направи като играч като менеджер. И той каза, че когато става дума за трибюти, статуи, паметници и така нататък, нали, радва се, че в сряда ще има огромен трибют към Киган, но според него е малко и закъсняло и че той заслужава много повече. И се надява това да е старта на повече признателност и уважение към това, което Киган направи за клуба. Както и каза Джо Харви, нали, Джо Харви последния менеджер спечели трофей за Нюкасъл, има малък бюст на Галогер и Тен. Каза, Джо Харви също заслужава нещо по-голямо да се отбележи това, което е постигнал. Киган каза, той кача на 76, Киган на 73 и на 73 в световно здраве, в много добра форма, обикаля Англия като прави такъв тип шоута. Само че Киган прави, такъв сам прави като стендап в супер форма и има някакъв случай, че сряда ще е на стадиона. Стив се съмнява, защото там има една история с това, че клуба все още не е върнал Питър Пиърски официално. Ще видим дали ще се случи, ако Киган е на стадиона сряда, според мен стадиона ще рухне. Но казвам, това е феноменална фигура в историята, държат връзка, аз ме питах днес, чуват се горе-долу всеки 2-3 месеца и огромно признателност към него.
We watched a lot of your goals on the screen before. Is there a favourite goal, and why is it your favourite goal?
Гледахме головете, малко имаше любим гол. But you can say also goals against Newcastle.
It was quite quick. There was many goals to say. No, you always remember your first. So, you know, and it was a Wolverhampton Wanderers away, and unbelievably it was a header, which I didn't score many of those, if any. So, because you'd always remember that. I mean, there's certain ones that are important in games, but some of them you forget about, and you know. But it's just an unbelievable feeling to have the opportunity to score and be celebrating with Newcastle fans is really amazing.
Was it in 92?
Sorry?
In 1992?
92 when my debut, my first goal?
Yeah.
No, I think it was
91.
Yeah, 91, yeah.
Казал аз нямам толкова много гола, което не е истина. Той има доста, има над 28 гола за Нюкасъл, има над 20 за Фулъм, има и доста за Съндърланд, така че има голове. Но казвам най-силно спомен от първия ми гол. Все пак първи гол за родния ми клуб. Беше гостуване на Уърхемптън. Не беше най-важният гол на света, нали? Но беше с глава. Нямам много гол с глава в живота ми. И го помня и до днес. Беше страхотна емоция. Това ще запомня този гол.
In the book that Will Scott's written, The Entertainer's book, the big reason for writing that was to try and find out why people felt we didn't win the league in 1995-96. It was also to pay tribute to that era. But it's the question that everybody asks you, so I'm going to ask you it today. Why do you think we didn't win the league under Kevin Keegan that year?
Книгата, която сега имате 12 копии от нея, на практика ентертейнер си голямата тема е как Николай го спомена преди малко в предишния отбор, Киган ни доближи на метър от бетованата земя да станем шампиони. Изпуснахме в последните 3 кръга. И въпросът на Стив Рейт, голямата тема е как изпуснахте титлата 96-та. Има 32 интервюта в книгата и 32 версии защо Нюкасъл да стане шампион. И това е версията на Николак Дипарен.
It's quite simple. He changed the team and put David Batty in for the last 9 games and took me out, so that's why.
Истината е много просто. Киган последните 9 мача да смени мен с Дейвид Бати и загубихме титлата.
Peter Beardsley, as we watch these goals, a lot of the assists seem to come from Peter, which I've never noticed. Andre pointed that out. Peter Beardsley, you were lucky enough to watch him play, but what was it like playing with him?
Питър Бирсли, гледайки твоите голове, видяхме, че половината асистенции са на Бирсли. Ти първо си го гледал като фен през 80-те години, после той си изработи половината голове. Какво ще кажеш за Питър Бирсли?
Quite simple. Peter was my hero in that fantastic 80s promotion team. Some of the goals he scored, some of the skills he'd done were phenomenal. So when I had the opportunity to play alongside him, it was just a dream come true, and it didn't disappoint. He was that good. Peter was, in my opinion, and this is who I've ever watched or played with or seen wearing a black and white shirt. And obviously before my time, before the 1980 when I first went to watch, it was all just through footage. But in my humble opinion, Peter is the best player to wear a black and white strip, if not one of the best. So that's how highly I rate Peter, and having the opportunity to play alongside him. He used to do that so many crazy things with the ball that people who didn't work with him on a regular basis probably thought that he miskicked the ball or it was a fluke, but he would just keep repeating these type of goals. I mean, there was 2 instances that happened both for Newcastle and then England in the space of about a week. We played Norwich City at St James's and Peter was out on the wing there over where the east stand is, and the keeper tried to read that he was going to hit a cross in, and Peter seen a gap at the near post and he just struck it with pace and power and bend, and it went in the goal. And he'd done exactly the same the following midweek at Wembley for England. And this was a type of thing that people probably thought the goal against Norwich was a mishit cross, where in fact we knew this was the quality that he had. So for me, no one's near him in terms of the best player, because he was a scorer of unbelievable goals, but he was also a brilliant team player as well. As you see from the footage, during our era, they didn't clock up your assists, which I believe Peter would have had a record number. And if you remember, for England, Peter invented the number 10 rule before it was invented, so an absolutely fabulous footballer.
Пак долу, пак мора да има тема, се каза, той ми беше идол като дете, като гледах 80-те години, после да игра с него 90-те, беше сбъдната мечта и той правеше луди неща, като някои хора се чудеха, понякога не оцелват топката, тя влиза в вратата и всички мисли, че случайно той го прави примерно 3 пъти. И се каза, най-добрият пример беше в рамките на една седмица, аз после ще пусна тия двата гола между, защото ги знам. В рамките на една седмица Нюкасъл игра с Норвич. В рамките на една седмица Нюкасъл игра с Норвич и Пиърс изкара от тъч линията. Видя, че вратаря е излязъл и центрира и топката влезе. И всички казваха, че гол е случайен. И после на седмицата Англия би Полша, да вкара същия гол на Полша с външен фаул с тъча. И като цяло правеше феноменални неща. В нашите години нямаше официална статистика за асистенции. Според мен той каза, Пиърс ще приоритет играта още тогава. Според каза, никой не е направил повече асистенции от него. И освен това той създаде позицията номер 10 в Англия, защото тогава нямаше номер 10. И той на практика с Гари Линекер му изработи половината голове и играеше и зад него. Така че, това вече се говори преди наши селото са много добри приятели и ти каза за мен лично най-великият играч на Нюкасъл във всички времена. При все, че каза, не съм ги гледал преди 75-та, а пък ако някой ми спори, че Пиърс не е най-великият, със сигурност е сред най-великите на всички времена. Велик футболист.
Kevin Keegan leaving the club, how big a shock was that to you and the other players?
Колко шокиращо беше, когато Keegan напусна Нюкасъл?
It was a huge shock. We realised something wasn't right. His last game was Charlton Athletic away in the FA Cup at the Valley, and we realised he wasn't his usual bubbly self. He got on the bus, and we just knew there wasn't a good vibe. Didn't think anything more of it, and then we came onto into the training ground the next day, and Terry McDermott and Arthur Cox called a meeting and to deliver the awful news, the news none of us wanted. We all adored him as a manager. We would have run through the proverbial brick wall for him, and we'd lost our mentor, we'd lost our friend, our mate, but obviously our boss as well, and it was a big blow for us all.
Каза, то се усещаше малко, че нещо не е наред. Настроението беше малко минало. Последният ни мач беше чадото за Купата на Англия. И даже преди ден на тренировка не беше... Личеше, че Keegan не е на кеф. И вече на следващия ден след мача дойде Артур Кокс и Тери Макдермът дойдоха и ни казаха, че Keegan напуска. И ние загубихме приятел, ментор, и загубихме шефа на треньора. И той това го каза и в отговор за Keegan. Keegan, най-основното качество на Keegan е мотивацията. Keegan беше мотиватор, каза да се чувства, че си висок 3 метра. И беше много добър да те убеди, че ти си най-добрият футболист в света на твоята позиция, беше цар на това. И загубихме този човек, който беше всичко за нас.
Looking back at your career, Lee, you also had other managers at Newcastle. Talk us through your time with Kenny Dalglish, because when we were sitting with Andre,
There's a goal.
that's a great goal, yeah.
That's Peters, that's what I'm talking about. For England.
Lots of people talk about Kenny Dalglish and say he was a bad manager for Newcastle. What was the players' feelings about Kenny Dalglish?
Кажи ми за другите менеджери, с които си работил. Говорихме си по-рано за Keegan Dalglish, аз му казах, че го ненавиждам заради това, че е сбил двора на Keegan. Ли когато вкара първия гол в ерата на Dalglish. И разкажи ми за Dalglish, разкажи ми за Сумес, или когато после работи с Грем Сумес, когато се върна от Нюкасъл.
No, listen, I got on very well with Kenny. I thought he was a good manager. He was different to Kevin. You know, where Kevin never concentrated on the opponent, it was just his team. Kenny done a lot of work on the opposition, and maybe that took a little bit away the flair from our attacking play. So yeah, it's just you know, as I said, it came across a little bit dour in his media stuff, but he was very protective of the players as well, and so yeah, it was a bit different to having Kevin with his expansive football and, you know, wanting to just be if the opponent scored 3, we'd scored 4, if they scored 4, he'd score 5 mentality, where Kenny wanted things to be a bit more solid. So like myself came out with the team, David Ginola, Les Ferdinand, so he made some decisions and broke up the team from the entertainers really.
Казах, голямата разлика между Киган и Далглиш, той го защити, аз когато ми казах, човек, това не го помисли. Той каза, не, Кени Далглиш е много добър, много готин човек. Голямата разлика между мен и Киган беше, Киган не е тактик, Киган никога не го интересуваше кой ни е съперник и как играе. Не отделяхме 0 минути да анализираме съперника. Искаше да играем в футбола на Нюкасъл и затова не играхме толкова вдъхновяващия такова стил. Докато Кени беше много фокусиран върху съперника и променяше тактика, играчи и така нататък, който уби част от цялото това вдъхновение и цялата тази флуидност, която имахме. Разбира се, Кени взе някои грешни решения на трансферния пазар. В деня, нали, за Лес Фердинанд знаем, че има натиск от директорите и продава Лес Фердинанд деня, когато се контузи шират. Продажата на Жилова, защото не се вписва точно в това как да се защитаваш срещу съперници и така нататък. Но като цяло каза Кени много добре се разбираше с играча, много ги защитаваше пред медиа, пред ръководство и вътре в съблекаването беше добър, но просто нямаше харизмата на Киган, когато общува с медиите и не изглеждаше толкова мотивираш за външния свят и това му засипа имиджа и на практика лоши резултати, раздялата с някои играчи му коства и някакви работа в интереса.
Just want to talk a little bit about one of the foreign exports that we had at Newcastle, Tyne. What was it like having him in the dressing room, and have you got any funny stories about Tyne?
Разкажи ми някаква смешна история с Tyne. Няма как да няма.
Many, some are a bit too close to talk about, but some great examples. So Tyne had been away on international duty with Colombia. And when everyone came back, the 2 places that the players congregated was either in the physio's room or the dining room, where we could just sit and chat with each other and have a cup of tea and have a bit of banter. So Tyne, as I said, had been away with the Colombian national team. He'd come back and he was on the medical bed in the physio's room. And I came in and he had a gash in his leg about that big. And so I said, Tyne, what's that, bad tackle? And he says, no, Nashki, bullet wound. And I said, bullet wound, what do you mean? He says, yes, bullet wound. Someone fired a gun at me. And I says, Tyne, listen, you need to start behaving or you'll get kicked off the national team. He says, never, Nashki. Myself and Pablo Escobar picked the national team.
Имам много истории с примерно някои от тях ме е срам да ги разказвам, но сега ще ви разкажа една, дето се разбира какъв човек беше разприга. Ние играчите се събирахме или в столовата, или в стаята за физиотерапия и връща се след сборна на националния отбор на Колумбия и аз и той сме там, гледам го огромна рана на крака и го питам какво става, ти изрита на шпагата и той река, не, това е простреля с куршум. И той нашия прякора на Николак и той му каза как ще постреля с куршума и ти трябва да си малко по-дисциплиниран, ще ти изхвърлят от националния отбор. И той каза, не, аз и Пабло Ескобар избираме националния отбор на Колумбия.
Okay, Andrew, we've done 40 minutes. Would you like to give the questions to the floor now? Anybody would like to ask questions?
Yes, maybe I can start. Yeah.
Okay.
You talked about Dalglish. Tell us about Graham Souness, because he's another controversial figure in the history of Newcastle, not highly regarded by most of us. Although we hear that he might be a good bloke, how was life with Souness in Newcastle?
Well, the toughest thing for Graham was he was following an icon, wasn't he? He took over from Sir Bobby Robson, and whoever took over from him was always going to find it difficult. When I went back to the club when he resigned me in 2005, I found a completely different club to the one I'd left within that great era in terms of the personalities, the quality of player. You know, we had, as Laurel Shepherd was famously quoted, Freddie Shepherd's, the late Freddie Shepherd's wife, when she bumped into Graham for the first time in his first game and said, "Oh, are you the lion tamer, are you?" Because we had a group of young players there who, as talented as they were, they could be a little bit indisciplined off the field, etc. And I don't think they helped Sir Bobby as much as they could have for what he was doing for them, and it caused a few problems in terms of behavioural and discipline issues. Graham didn't hit the ground running on top of obviously replacing Sir Bobby, but I can only speak as I find, and I thought he was a great guy, a great personality. He handled the situation where he knew he was under pressure from day one, and it didn't go particularly well on many occasions, but he handled it well. And unfortunately, like, you know, a lot of managers, when you know things aren't going well, you know what's coming next, and in the end, inevitable was going to happen, and you just had to go again and go from there. That's the worst part of the business. I always felt whenever it happened, and thankfully it didn't happen on many occasions, I always felt like a lot of guilt when a manager had lost his job that I'd been involved with, and so yeah, those kind of situations were nice.
Питах го да разкаже малко и за Сунес. И той каза, нали, най-известният случай беше, като постъпи Сунес с жената на Фреди Шепард да срещна в коридора и попитал ти ли си укротителя на логовете. Защото тогава състава на Нюкасъл бяха предимно млади играчи, много талантливи, много недисциплинирани. И това беше големият проблем на отбора. Нали, Клар каза, като се върнем в 2005, беше различен клуб от това, което бях напуснал през 1997. И нали, имаше много проблеми извън клуба. Всеки, който идваше след Боби Робсън, щеше да му е трудно. Самите тези, това поколение и тези млади играчи не помогнаха на Боби Робсън да остане по-дълго. Така че Сунес малко или много с неговия твърд дисциплиниран подход и с това, че не постигна бързи резултати, беше обречен. И нали, той каза, че това е жалкото и за него кофтито в футбола, че до добри треньори, добри специалисти понякога стават жертва на посочни резултати, но всеки си плаща цената. Let me ask you about, нали, ще допитам сега за известната случка с финала за FA Cup 99 година. Нали, за тези, I'll ask you about the FA Cup final 99. Probably a question nobody asked you ever, yeah?
Sorry?
The question will be about the FA Cup final in 1999. You never heard it, yeah? So, 99 година Николай като капитан на Съндърланд отива на финала на Уембли за FA Cup между Manchester United и Newcastle. Сега с историята, както я знам, и той ще потвърди. Срещата група фена на Нюкасъл и докара да облече фанелата, която Марко Мандев на отмаси, след Маркън Бастър.
I should be getting royalties for them, Tom.
Разбира се, като капитан на Съндърланд да носиш фанелата. Разбира се, като капитан на Съндърланд да носиш фанелата, която е опитна за всички фенове на Съндърланд. На другия ден от Съндърланд го молят да прекратят договорите, го прекратява и отива в Фулъм, където прави спортна кариера. Но аз ще попитам, sorry, what's the full story about this? What did anyone meet you and gave you the t-shirt? What happened afterwards? What were the consequences? The picture is famous, everybody knows even in Bulgaria about this little episode. I'll put the picture on the screen just while you tell the story, yeah?
The simple facts were that I'd been given permission to go to support Newcastle at the cup final, and I went there, and at the time my manager had told Peter Reid said I was allowed to go, but I couldn't wear club colours, and I didn't. But when I came out of a taxi to go into a pub that was owned by a Geordie guy, some Newcastle fans put the t-shirt on it, and as you can see, I've got my cricket bucket hat on, and someone had whipped the t-shirt on us, and for about 30 seconds, 45 seconds, people took a few pictures. So obviously when the media got hold of it, this isn't what the media attention like what it is today, but when the media got a hold of it, you know, it meant my time at Sunderland was untenable. So But I was wanting to leave Sunderland in any way because I could have never ever played for Sunderland against Newcastle, and obviously Sunderland had just been promoted back to the Premier League, so that was going to be an issue for me in any way. So, and then I got a great move to Fulham.
There's a gift for you, Lee.
As I promised.
Историята, нали, аз бях поискал разрешение от Съндърланд да отида на финал да подкрепям Нюкасъл и Питър Рид, менеджер на Съндърланд, ми каза: отиваш, но няма да носиш нито цветове на Нюкасъл на стадиона. И вика: разбира се, аз слизам от таксито и върви различни фенове на Нюкасъл и я дал за тази фанелка и включително негов приятел го моли: сложи за тази фанелка, моля да повезе за 30 секунди. Той слага, каза: носи тя максимум 45 секунди, но разбира се, всички медии ме снимаха и това обиквали медиите на другия ден. Но каза така или иначе, аз искам да се махна от Съндърланд, защото не иска да игра срещу Нюкасъл, а бяхме се изкачили във Висшата лига. Както казах, Три, когато се качва в Висшата лига и с Нюкасъл 93-та, Съндърланд 99-та и Фулъм 2001. Така че имам 3 промоции с 3 клуба. И казва: аз така или иначе искам да се махна това лято, но тази случай катализира изхода ми от Съндърланд. Последен въпрос от мен и от Ватми за вас. We know that you were called to the England national team in '97 for the new tournament. Actually, you went there as a Sunderland player because you were announced as a Sunderland player on Monday and the England co-op came in the afternoon. But do you regret not playing for the national team, and what do you think prevented you from making it? I mean, it was a very strong generation, but was it also the
I mean, to answer the question the way you've asked it is, I did end up getting a call up once I'd signed for Sunderland, but the chain of events were on the Friday. Peter Reid was the last manager I was meeting to decide where I was going to go. I'd been to meet previous 9 or 10 other managers: Aston Villa, Manchester City, my old boss at Derby County, Jim Smith, who gave us my debut, Celtic, Rangers, Marseille in France. And then I met Peter Reid without having any intentions of signing for them. And he took me to a wine bar in Manchester and gave me 3 bottles of champagne, and after that I signed a 5-year contract. But it wasn't getting announced till the Monday, and the press conference wasn't till Monday morning. So on the Saturday I was out golfing, and I got a phone call of Glenn Hoddle to say he was naming the squad for the Tour War on the Monday, and I was going to be involved, and so I was buzzing at that. But the team were flying out on the Monday morning, and the press conference for me to sign for Sunderland was going to be Monday morning. So Glenn agreed for me to leave later, and they would fly me out to France on a separate flight, and I could still do the press conference. So in the meantime, I put the phone down on Glenn. You know, I started thinking and rang my agent and said, what are the bonuses in my Sunderland contract for getting in England with England and the England squad? And he says, well, I've got some, but why'd you ask? And I says, I'm getting called up on Monday for the tournament. Glenn Hoddle's just rang me up. So he says, leave it with me. And he rang Bob Murray and Peter Reid, and he got a few of the bonuses changed to a very high amount. So on the Monday, when I went to do the press conference, I took my dad with us, and as I walked in, I had a pinstripe black and white suit on, and Peter Reid was like, come on, you're saying for Sunderland you're wearing fucking black and white, this is wrong. And I was like, don't worry. So on the yellow ticker, Sky Sports breaking news, it was Sunderland signed Lee Clark from Rivals for a club record fee of the time, $4 million, 1997. And then about 20 minutes later, I'm sitting in Peter Reid's office with Bob Murray, the chairman, me and my dad and my agent, and the next breaking news is Sunderland's new signing Lee Clark, shock inclusion into the Tour War, and they both looked at me, Peter Reid and Bob Murray, and just went, you little bastard, because they knew I was getting all these bonuses. So, and the second part of it is, I think the only reason that I didn't, it was the year I was in, the midfield players I was up against, you know, Paul Scholes, Rob Lee, Dave Batty, Paul Ince, Paul Gascoigne, Beckham, Stevie G was coming through at the time, Stephen Gerrard. So there was numerous players and I regretted it because I think later on when I looked, and the great man that he is, the late great Sven-Göran Eriksson, when he took over, he was giving caps out like confetti, and I was thinking, when I look back at some of the players who ended up getting a cap, and I unfortunately never got that full one, having played through under 15s all the way through to 21s, and just being on the bench for those 3 internationals against Brazil, France and Italy, and not getting any minutes, that does rankle with us, especially because I turned down playing for the Republic of Ireland. I could have played in two World Cups for Jack Charlton. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to translate that bit first, or because I've got a good Jack Charlton story.
Let me translate because it's a long one. It was a great one.
Okay.
Значи той даде дълго отбора, много интересен. Каза, тя историята ми за моят повиквател в националната много интересна. Вие каза, нали, аз бях решил да напуска Нюкасъл и имах разговори с Марсилия, аз съм бил в Севертън и ми се обади Питър Рид от Съндърланд и ви каза, никога не искам да преминавам в Съндърланд, но той ме заведе в една винарна в Манчестър и ми даде 3 бутилки шампанско и в края на вечерта ме подписа за 5 години с Съндърланд. Обаче в съботата ми се обади Глен Ходор, че съм в състава за Люто Рома 97 турнира, който беше подготвителен с световното във Франция. Обади ми се Глен Ходор, че ме викат в състава. И той каза, аз обадих на агента ми, да се обади в Съндърланд и да пита какви са бонусите за подготвител в националния. И агента му се обажда в Съндърланд и вика, дигнахме бонусите многократно, ако ме викнат национал. Понеделник подписвам, другия проблем беше, че националната замина понеделник сутрин, в пресконференция да обявят моят трансфер в Съндърланд, беше понеделник след обяд, Глен Ходор ми позволи да лета във вторник за Франция. Респективно, в понеделник подписвам сутринта, по Sky Sports, нали, върви новина, рекорден трансфер за Съндърланд, 4 милиона паунда за Ли Кларк от Нewcastle, през 97 4 милиона бяха големи пари. И след 20 минути казва и излезе новината, Ли Кларк извика в национален отбор и тогава президента и менеджера на Съндърланд ми каза, как ти по-паленци, защо така ни прецака, нали? Ти си знаел. И другото, което ви каза, аз на подписването на договора с Съндърланд бях с костюм черно-бели раета и те ми се гледаха супер странно и казах, ти нормален не си, ти пошли с Съндърланд, защо идваш този костюм. Но казвам, нали, разбира се, че съжалявам, че не играх за Англия, но беше много силно поколение. В моето поколение бяха Пол Инс, Пол Сколс, Дейвид Бати, Дейвид Бекъм, Пол Гаспойн, Роб Ли. А казах, аз това пъти отказах на Ирландия, защото Джеки Чарлтън искаше за световното, на 2 световни първенства. Джеки Чарлтън също един сезон менеджер на Нewcastle 84. И казах, сега ще ви разкажа една история за Джеки Чарлтън, която е малко по-дълга. Но казвам, разбира се, че съжалявам много повече, когато видях Сven-Göran Eriksson, когато дойде след това и раздаваше повиквателни за национален отбор като конфети. И доста играчи на Съндърланд, дори на Съндърланд, каза, направиха дебюти за националния. И играчи, които мисля, че бях на тяхното ниво, играха за Англия. Аз в крайна сметка останах с 3 пейки срещу Бразилия, Италия и Франция. Така че, разбира се, че някак не съжалявам. Джеки Чарлтън.
Yeah, so when I was a young player, and Jack Charlton was the manager of Newcastle in the mid-80s, 1980s, we got asked one day, we got told, not asked, by the youth team coach, Colin Suggett, that we needed to go to the manager's house and clean it out because it was a little bit messy. So we went up to the house, and myself and an ex-teammate of mine, an ex-Newcastle player called Paul Stevenson, who played for the club in the late 80s, our job was to clean the front living area of the manager's house, and he was in the house when we were doing it. And on the floor he had a newspaper rack or magazine rack, and it was packed full of newspapers and magazines. And so I said to the manager, do you want me to get rid of them? He says, yeah, get rid of them, Lee, son, So I took them, as I pulled the magazines and the newspapers out of the rack, this thing flew across the air and went onto the carpet over about 10 yards away, and I went and collected it. And I took it into the kitchen where the manager was, Jack Charlton with Colin, just chatting. And I says, oh boss, that's come out the magazine rack. And he looked at it and he went, fucking hell son, that's me World Cup winners medal, I've been looking all over for that.
Джек Чарлтън ме е много обича, защото от времето, когато беше менеджер на Newcastle и каза, бях играч в детските отбори. Между другото, споменах преди Лига, национална Англия, всички възрасти от 15 до младежи, младежи има 11 мача, но не играе за мъжите. Но казвам, като бях юноша на Newcastle, един ден идват при нас и ни попитаха, вика даже не ни попитаха, ни казаха, на мен и на Пол Стивенсън, да ходим в къщата на Джеко Чарлтън да му изчистиме къщата. И отидох, нали, аз чистех хола. И чистех хола и по едно време някакво купчина вестници и изписания и трябваше да ги преместя от едно място до друго място и мести и нещо изпада. И го дигам този пакет, отивам при Джеки Чарлтън и му казвам шефа, тук това изпада, не трябва палети. Той отваря никакъв човек, това го търся от години, това ми е златния медал в световното 66-та. И от тогава само слабо сме рекали. Въпроси, банда, някой?
Аз имам.
Давай. Както искаш. Ако искаш, кажи на български, аз покажа на микрофона на български.
Имам въпрос, ако беше сега треньор на Нюкасъл, примерно срещу Ливърпул, какво ще да променим, а не само играчи, но и тактически също.
If you are managing Newcastle today, what would you change tactically and team-wise against Liverpool on Wednesday?
I'd ask the Premier League to change the rules and allow me to put 2 goalkeepers in. No, I think you can see the teams and the result against West Ham's taking a little bit of confidence out of the team. We're not playing with any penetration or any quality on the ball, which is the opposite to what Liverpool are doing. They're playing with lots of confidence and lots of penetration. They've changed a bit from what Jurgen Klopp done in terms of Jurgen played the front foot, high tempo football. Arne Slot's come in and he wants to play a bit more possession based style. So I think it's going to have to be a team that's got the most energy, a team that's prepared to do the high press and can do it together. For me, looking at the players today, too many of our players, they look a little bit heavy length, they look tired, they look physically drained. So that's going to be an issue, trying to recover. In terms of changing the dynamics of the team, I've got to say, I thought majority of the defenders today were our best players. I do have this issue in midfield when we put those players together. And I keep saying it, your best individual players or your best individual 11 players don't always make your best team. And it has to be the right people in the right places. And, you know, we said it against West Ham, a lot of people I've spoke to today said it again today, we've got a strong bench. Well, those players that we're classing as a strong bench have to be given an opportunity themselves. And so but it's home, we've got to try and take the game to Liverpool. Do you go back to, people call it old-fashioned and a little bit prehistoric, but do we change it and go with 4-4-2 and play 2 strikers on the pitch with 2 real pacey wingers? If you're going to do that, your midfield too have to be the most energetic and fit to play box to box. And take teams on. I mean, Eddie has in the past, to be fair, and when the big boys have come into town in St James's, he's took them on. So he's never done what Brucey done or Rafa done to a certain extent. Rafa's was a bit different because he had a lack of quality of players, but when they played a lot deeper against these teams and it was damage limitation, Eddie's gone on the front foot. So, but there certainly isn't that impact this season in terms of our attacking play. We're not playing with the speed, the tempo, the quality if we had in previous years under Eddie. So that's something that we've got to be concerned about, because obviously if we follow, if the performance comes again like we had against Crystal Palace in the form that Liverpool are in, it'll be a long night on Wednesday, that's for sure.
Ами, първо се пошуква, че сложи двама вратари, ако може да се ще Ливърпул, после, нали, все пак изхожда ми от това, че сина му игра при Ливърпул доскоро, така че според мен ги познава добре, сега ще опитам и се сина му. Каза, нали, приятна слот играят различни стил, при Ливърпул не играят тази висока преса, играят много по-футбол, който контролират топката и са малко по-търпеливи. Но каза, нали, обичайно атакува големите отбори на Сейнт Джеймс. Пак нещо, което Стив, Брус и Рафа не прави. Каза, Рафа нямаше играчите. докато Еди винаги е много агресивен срещу големите отбори, искам това да продължи, но липсата на усилата в атака, играта в халфата линия, която коментира, която днес нямаше никаква. Отново повтори това, което беше коментарно за матч с Кристал Палас. 11-те най-добри играчи не винаги са ти най-добрата стартова линия на световка. И каза, че би сложил играчи, които да играят, да имат висока енергия, да играят пресиращо, да играят динамично. И че трябва да имаме и късмет в сряда. Но притеснени казваме, че загубата от Уест Хем очевидно се отразила психически, защото отбор беше на тотално друга вълна, нали? Успешна серия лагера в Саудитска Арабия и изведнъж някаква загуба, която е неочаквана. Така че каза, тази загуба срещу Уест Хем се отразява. Ако е играта от Уест Хем и Кристал Палас, ще е много тегъв мач за гледане. Въпроси и отговори?
Андрей.
Why is he allowed in?
Tell us about Gaza.
Gaza.
Paul Gascoigne. Do you know him? You know?
Yeah, I know Paul very well. As I said, when I was a young player, that the club were trying to tempt for me to sign for them. When I used to go into the training ground on school holidays, I used to train with the first team when I was 13, 14, and Paul was part of it there. But Paul as well always used to come down to it wasn't academy then, the youth's part of the training facility to train with us young lads, and and I became very close friends with him. Some of the crazy things he'd done, for some reason the club thought it would be good that Gaza would be Mirandinha, the first Brazilian footballer to play for Newcastle. Paul would be his interpreter, and that turned out absolutely horrendous. There was the time where I went to go fishing with Paul, and my friend again, me and Paul Stevenson, we were in the car in front of Paul, and there was a railway line, and the gate was down because there was a train coming, and Paul thought it was funny that he'd bring his car behind us and just start revving it and trying to push our car. Basically thinking it was funny he was going to push us on the rail line on with an oncoming train. There was the other time where Billy Whitehurst was looking to give him a little bit of a slap because he'd been a bit disrespectful, and Billy couldn't find Gaza, and Gaza was in the communal dryer, what the kit man used to dry the kit. Paul was in there and it was just spinning round. There's just numerous stories, that you could see. Some of the crazy things he's done when I was lucky enough to go down to Tottenham with him when he played for Tottenham, and a couple of times I went over to Italy when he was at Lazio, and the things that he'd done there was just absolutely mental. So, for me, a little bit sad in terms of I was his friend, I was close to him, and if I can easily say this, I've got no doubts about it, if Paul hadn't have picked up that knee injury against Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup final, as he was due to go to Lazio, he would have been a Ballon d'Or winner. He would have been the best player in the world without a shadow of a doubt.
Аз не бях чирак на Газа, като млад пробиващ юноша, но бях чирак в Нюкасъл. И разбира се, че се сближихме и имам хиляди истории. Каза беше тотално ненормален. Каза едната от историите, сигурно я знаете, първият бразилец изобщо в Англия в Нюкасъл, Мирандинha, 87 година, замества Питър Биелски. И Газа го излъга, че му е назначен от клуба за преводач. И вика, не мога да се представите Мирандинha какъв английски научи за 3 месеца. Беше жестока история, беше научил само някакви посурни, нали, той човека не може да се оправи в Англия за една година. Каза друга история, отиваме на риба. Аз съм юноша с Пол Стивенсън, сме юноши, отиваме за риба. И Газа е с нас, сме с две коли, аз Пол Стивенсън сме на предната, Газа е зад нас. и бариера влакова и минава влака и ние спираме, а газа отзад с колата ни подпира и ни бута към линията и се смее. И вика го намираше за смешно, че иска да ни избута на линията като минава влака. Вика друга история, един път беше се изкарал с Били Уайтхърст. Били Уайтхърст се води една твърди играч с историята на Нюкасъл. Той е централен нападател, ама и пиш зидар, и пиш боксер. И като пак се удря само два пъти, той е път по капака на ковчега. Един път Били Уайтхърст много се изнерви на тренировка и беше решил да го бие. Даже му шамари го на тренировка. И в съблекалната го търсеше да го бие. И вика ми накрая, знаете ли къде го намери? По-Гаскони се беше скрил сушилнията, когато се въртеше. И газа се въртеше вътре и се смееше. И Били Уайтхърст се отказа да го бие. Вика газа така се спаси. Но каза, нали, за мен, той каза, забия се, че счита, че най-великият за Нюкасъл, но каза за мен Гаскони, ако не беше контузията 91-а, сигурно знаете, че Гаскони има дълго послатио вече. Финала за FA Cup 91-а, Тотнъм Нотингъм финала. Газа се контузва в 20-та минута, влиза на 10 лока, Газа е изцяло виновен за влизане, защото влиза много грубо и къса коленни връзки, чупи капачка на коляно и една година аут. Каза, ако не беше тази контузия, Газа ще да спечели златната топка, аз съм 100% сигурен. Щеше да е най-добър света поне една година. Maybe because you mentioned Bobby Clark a few times, and people know that Bobby Clark was in Newcastle and then he went to Liverpool. Why did you let him leave Newcastle, or it was his choice, or what happened there?
I didn't let him leave. It was his choice. He was unhappy with one or two of the people in the academy, and they didn't treat him fairly, like he thought, and he decided to make the move to Liverpool, which was a fantastic decision in hindsight. He made his debut in the Premier League as a 17-year-old. He became the 5th youngest player in the club's history to score in Europe. The 5th youngest player in the club's history to score a European goal. And he also won a Carabao Cup. I tried for 22 years to win silverware. He went for 22 months and done it. So, and then obviously Jürgen left. There was big changes. Arnie Slot came in. Arnie telling a lot of the young players that it was going to be difficult for them. He was going to go with the experienced players. Pep Linders, the assistant to Jürgen, took over as the head coach of Red Bull Salzburg, and they quickly made a move for Bobby. They had 5 or 6 bids turned down, and they agreed a fee, something in the region of £13 million, rising to £20 million, and then a lot of things was Bobby knew Pep. He knew that he would develop him, but also Red Bull Salzburg have this reputation as a club of development. So what Bobby's gained still, he's only 19, he's gaining this experience of playing overseas, but also in the Champions League. They've had an extremely tough run of games. I was in Germany on Tuesday. They got beat 5-0 off by a Leverkusen, which is a tough result, but they're a fantastic side. Red Bull Salzburg have the youngest average age in the Champions League at 20.9. They have a lot of youngsters. And his last 3 games, where they probably need 2 wins to qualify after they beat Feyenoord. I was there, they played terrific. But the last 3 games are nice and easy, so they'll probably get 2 wins from those 3 because they've got Paris Saint-Germain at home, Real Madrid away, and Atletico Madrid at home. So we're hoping for 6 points at least.
Каза за Боби Кларк, неговото решение си беше, не харесваше двамата има човек в академията на Нюкасъл и сам си избра, но той направи верния избор, защото на 17 дебютира във Висшата лига, на миналата година спечели Карабао Кап и каза 22 години в футбол не успях да спечеля. На 19 години сега играе Шампионска лига. Каза, когато дойде Агнес Лот, лятото каза на младите играчи, че ще залага на по-опитни играчи, че няма да има толкова шансове за младите. Затова Пеп Линдърс, като отиде в Залцбург, направиха този трансфер. Официалната информация е 10 милиона, или казва 13 милиона, който може да стигне до 20 милиона. Все още стана петия най-млад играч в историята на Ливърпул с гол в европремиерите, взе Карабао Кап и сега в залата вече в 5 мача в 4 титуляр. Да, паднаха от гледането за 5-0, аз казах, бях в Германия във вторник да изгледам, но са най-млади отбор в шампионската лига, 20.9 години средна възраст и са клуб, който много силно млади играчи. Юрген Клуб отива там на 1 януари като глобален шеф на Red империята е верига от клубове. Така че Боби е на добро място, още е само на 19 и има много потенциал за развитие. И казва пък шампионската лига да има точно много шансове да се вземат следващите 3 мача, продължават сигурно, а тия 3 мача са супер сигурни с ПСЖ, Реал Мадрид и Атлетико Мадрид. Няма как да не ги вземат. There was a question from our friend Kaman. Do you have any observations over the academy in Newcastle today? How is the youth academy working in Newcastle in terms of developing young players?
Badly.
Not so great. You have the 1 or 2 success stories when you get the Lewis Miley coming through, but in terms of what's being financed there now, the money that's being spent and the turnaround in coaches, it's not producing as many as it should be. I mean, when you talk about the difference in the 2 clubs, if it hadn't been for the youngsters at Liverpool last season when a lot of their senior players were out injured, who took them to that final in the Carabao Cup, and then 5 or 6 of them were on the pitch at the end when they ended up beating Chelsea. I mean, we haven't got that possibility at Newcastle, and whether we're a big club or not, you do have to do this better. I mean, you look at Manchester City, and we're talking about, when you talk about PSR and you're talking about financial fair play, yes, Manchester City have big revenue streams, but one of their biggest revenue streams is their academy. In the last 5 seasons, their total, what they've raised from players from their academy is £472 million.
Yep.
And that's in the last 5 years, and that gives Pep Guardiola or whoever's making the decisions the opportunity to either reinvest that into the first team, because that goes on the revenue streams, or to go and get the best guys in the world for back to the academy. So that's what I've always had a gripe with Newcastle. Too many players when they're deemed not good enough for Newcastle, which there many is, because there's a really small percentage of youngsters make it through now, but they end up going straight into non-league. Surely we must be at a level where we're coaching these boys where if they're not good enough for Eddie and his team, we can sell them on to other clubs. You know, a couple of million here or a couple of million there, and then this allows Eddie and the club to then reinvest that. 1, to build a better academy, because you have to keep striving to be better, and 2, allows Eddie a bit more for his playing budget. This is one area where we have to get better in comparison to the other big clubs. So yeah, it certainly isn't at the level it should be, that's for sure.
Не е на високо ниво, само Луис Майли е побил последните години. Като цяло, трябва да се оценява ролята на една академия за клуба. Ливърпул на финал с Карабао миналата година. Имаха 6 контузени титуляри, изкараха юношите и стажери от купата. Това Нюкасъл не е състояние да го направи в момента. И каза, ето много хора коментират финансов ферплей Манчестър Сити, но Манчестър Сити последните 5 години са продали юноши техни за 472 милиона, което на практика основата, на която Пеп Гвардиола гради цялата империя на първи отбор в момента. Докато Нюкасъл не могат. Голямата ми болка и големият проблем на академията на Нюкасъл е, че имаш един на 5 години, който стига до първи отбор, а останалите всички отиват в непрофесионален футбол или в полупрофесионален футбол. Докато силните академии нямаш силен играч за Челси и за Ливърпул и продаваш на Брайтън, на Борнмут, на отбори от високо ниво. Тоест не се тренират тия момчета в Нюкасъл по начин, по който им позволяват да дадат кариери и оттам няма помощи за клуба като приходи. И в това отношение Нюкасъл се още назад от големите клубове. Въпрос? Maybe last couple of questions.
Yes. Andrew.
Your ambitions as a manager from now on, you started great, we mentioned the Huddersfield record. From now on, how do you see yourself? Do you ever dream of managing Newcastle United?
That was my dream, but that's gone now in terms of the management side.
is gone. It's I'm enjoying being a fan again. I'm enjoying going to watch my son playing some fantastic fixtures to support him, but really enjoying it. And I like to see it stress-free. It's certainly not stress-free when I watch my son. I still get the the nervousness about the games, but certainly enjoying it being back as a fan and not having the stresses of football management, which is putting a lot in for not a lot of gain, because there's only so many managers can win the major prizes, and it is becoming tougher. The shelf life of a manager isn't that long anymore. So yeah, this seems a lot easier for me, that's for sure.
Каза вече съм се, според мен моята менеджерска кариера приключи. Имахме читата за вода Нюкасъл, особено като на върха с къда сил, но в последно време съм се отдавал да съм баща, да гледам сина си, да ходя да гледам яки мачове през цяла Европа. Не е по-малко стресиращо от това да си менеджер, но каза и менеджерската роля в Англия и като цяло се промени вече. Живота на един менеджер е много по-къс, отколкото на времето, дава да си много по-малък шанс. И е много по-кратка кариера и това също не ми допадаше. Така че ще се отдам си изцяло на бащинството и да се кефа на сина ми и да ще стигне. I think you kind of answered this question, but who is the player you basically felt best on the pitch with? Who was your best teammate in terms of...
My best teammate? Well, I'd like to think of... You mentioned earlier about I was lucky enough to play with lots of good strikers, and I felt like, because one of my strengths as a footballer was my passing ability, and when I was allowed to play in behind people like, at the start of it all, Mickey Quinn, David Kelly, Gavin Peacock, then you go Peter Beardsley, Malcolm Allen, Andy Cole, Les Ferdinand, Tino Aspira, Alan Shearer, Michael Oden, even at Sunderland with Kevin Phillips and Niall Quinn and Michael Bridges, then Fulham, Louis Saha, who turned into a fantastic footballer. So all these, I was lucky enough to play, and as I said, Peter is always the one that just, if you think back to those set of players, especially obviously the Newcastle players I've mentioned, if you look at a lot of their goals, like Steve said, a lot of my goals, and you said it, Peter's involved in them, and I think Peter's involved in most goals for Peter. That's what I was saying, if the assists record had been kept when Peter was around, he would have smashed them into smithereens. So obviously Peter will always be the one that you point your finger at, you know.
Споменах, каза, аз имам късмет да играх в Нюкасъл още в първите нападатели. Мики Куин, Дейвид Келли, после Анди Кол, Лес Фердинанд, Алан Ширър. Каза, в Фулъм играх с Саха, в Съндърланд играх с Кевин Филипс и Нара Куин. Нали, каза, мен най-силното ми качество беше да давам пасове. Но Питър Биърсли беше човек, който, нали, всички тия играчи, които изборих, повечето техни голове са изработени от Питър Биърсли, повечето мои голове са изработени от Питър Биърсли. Така че Биърсли беше човек, който беше най-голям кеф да си на терена. We didn't talk much about him, but you played with him in his first season. A couple of words on Alan Shearer.
Alan?
Yes.
Alan's record speaks for itself. He's a phenomenal number 9, and unfortunately after we missed out on the Premier League that year, we were all a bit down in the dumps, and then we broke the world record transfer fee to bring Alan back home. We thought that was going to be the final piece of getting everything together, but unfortunately football's not that simple, is it? There's other aspects fall into play, but an unbelievable striker, rightly up there as one of the best, if not the best number 9 that was going of his era. And there was some top players, by the way. The young Ronaldo was around at that time as well, so there was some top number 9s in that era. But no, I mean his record, the top Premier League goal scorer ever, Newcastle United's top goal scorer, all those records were, just tell you their own story about him. He could score any type of goal. He was just as pleased to score one or tap in as he would be the volley he scored against Everton that day when he smashed it into the top corner. So yeah, he was an absolute top player. So I'm lucky enough to. That's what I say. I was lucky enough to, you know. I look back at my career and I look back at some of these top strikers I've been playing alongside, and it was just quite made my job a lot easier. Quite simple actually. For example, Andy Cole, I knew wanted to play on the shoulder of the last defender, and all I had to do was make sure the ball was pushed through into that space so he didn't have to break stride, and he would then decide what type of finish he was going to use. Coley didn't want the ball in his feet to be twisting and turning. So yeah, those type of things. Les Ferdinand, phenomenal in the air, but such a great touch and power as well. So yes, really lucky, but as you said, Shearer, top of the tree.
Велики играч, каза, нали, неговите голмайсторски рекорди ще останат. Когато го купихме на 96-та година, всички бяхме сигурни, че тъкмо бяхме изпуснали титлата и взимаме последното парченце от пъзела и няма как да не станем шампиони, но в крайна сметка не станахме. Можеше да закарва всякакви голове и от до гол линията да добута и поле от 30 метра като това срещу Евертън. Велик голмайстор, каза аз, беше привилегия да играя с него, беше привилегия да играе с Анди Кол, който обичаше и той изобщо не искаше топката в краката, обичаше да играе на ръба на засадата и само топката пред него да я отбираш на въпросване. Les Ferdinand беше сигурно най-силният във въздуха, с който съм играл и много мощен и силен. Имах привилегия да играя с тези всичките нападатели, но Ширер със сигурност е един от най-великите и то в света и то в ерата на бразилеца Роналдо и играч от този клас, така че няма смисъл да го коментираме. Last question, and afterward, и след това ще направим снимки с Ли, всеки може да мине да се снима. Last question, and we'll do a round of pictures and signatures. Yeah.
Expression of our fan club. What you're going to tell when you go back home to your friends, to your relatives?
Impression about the Bulgarian fan club, and what would you say in Newcastle about us before we come on Wednesday for the Liverpool game?
Speak genuinely and honestly here. This is an outstanding setup. I've been taken aback by it. I had looked previously when you had Nobby Solano here and Peter Beardsley, but I didn't realise until I got here the real dedication and the passion you have for the club, with all the shirts and all the flags and everybody in the black and white shirts. So, I'll certainly be putting things onto my social media on Instagram to say that I've had a fantastic day and evening.
We have also an app.
And an app, well, we'll get involved with that. He must have done the app, did he? Yeah, he did the app. He wants that. So, yeah, I'll be spreading the word to my teammates, who I still see on socially about the great people that are here and what you do for the support of the club. It's not just about the people who are lucky enough to get in the stadium. I know there's lots of views going to St James's on Wednesday to watch the game, and I just think it's absolutely fantastic to think that it's the cost that it costs now to go and watch a football match, and what you do for the club. So you deserve all the credit you get, and thank you so much from the bottom of our heart. We really appreciate it.
Колко сте отдадени и колко сте привързани, но сега като ви видяхте с знамената, с фанелките, шаловете, книгите, си давам сметка, че колко много обичате Нюкасъл. Ще го предам това на моите съотборници от отбора от 90-те, ще го предам това и в социални медии и така нататък. Отлично впечатление, чувствате се супер и е впечатлен наистина от това, което виждате. Аплодисменти за Никола!